City of Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission meeting, recorded, November 3rd, 2020.
It's about 9 o'clock, but I'll wait till Tom. Tom, I'll make sure everybody is in before I get started here. I don't want to.
Everybody is in.
All right. With that being said, it is 9 o'clock. I will call to order this meeting of the Police and Fire Commission. Leanne, would you be kind enough to please call the roll for us?
Carlson,
I'm here.
Hirschling,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Ostrowski,
Here.
Westcott.
Present. Thank you. Thank you for meeting with us this early, folks. We're meeting to accommodate legal counsel, which has commitments this afternoon. So we appreciate you taking time on an election morning to spend a little time and observing what the commission does. Item 2 is recognition of a life-saving award for Captain Ron Hebler. Captain Hebler, of course, in the fire service. Captain Hebler, before I turn this over to Chief Finn, I just want you to know that we had intended to hopefully present this prestigious award to you in person, but unfortunately the pandemic is not going to permit that. So with that being said, Chief Finn, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. As President Westcott said, we had hoped to give this to Captain Hebler in front of his family. This particular incident took place in February of this year. But due to COVID, we wanted to make sure Captain Hebler was recognized as well as she should be. So, whereas Captain Ron Hebler has been awarded the Life-Saving Medal for being directly responsible for saving a human life through various actions and going above and beyond the normal duties and responsibilities while off duty. His display of extraordinary skill, courage, and valiant actions while off duty by performing life-saving measures were instrumental in saving a life. Whereas on Saturday, February 15, 2020, at 8:41, while off duty and returning from a trip, Captain Hebler noticed a Milwaukee County Sheriff deputy running through the baggage area of the Milwaukee Mitchell International Airport. Captain Hebler followed the deputy to the scene of the medical alert. When they arrived, they found the subject was in cardiac arrest. Whereas Captain Hebler identified himself as a member of the Stevens Point Fire Department and began to assist the Milwaukee County Sheriff deputy performing CPR while the other deputy went to retrieve an AED. Once the AED was connected and the subject was assessed, a shock was administered and Captain Hebler continued performing CPR. Captain Hebler and the deputy switched positions to ensure good compressions. After a second AED assessment, another shock was administered and Captain Hebler continued performing CPR. Shortly after that, Milwaukee County Airport Rescue 6 arrived on the scene and relieved the deputy from continuing compressions. Eventually, Captain Hebler was relieved as well. And a short time later, the patient regained the pulse and began breathing on her own. Whereas, due to efforts put forth by everyone involved, specifically Captain Ronald Hebler, the subject left the airport alive. Considering the multiple cycles of CPR that occurred, yet Captain Hebler hesitated in providing care, the patient may not have survived. Captain Ronald Hebler, due to your quick actions and selfless acts on February 15, 2020, I, Robert Finn, Chief of the Stevens Point Fire Department, would like to extend my personal congratulations. Your valiant actions are held in the highest regard, and I further encourage the members of the Stevens Point Fire Department to share in the pride of this honor that you have received. And Cap, here's your medal.
Very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Nice job, Ron.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very fortunate that you were at the airport that day.
God bless you for all you did.
I think what a few commissioners likely remember is Captain Hebler was one of the original class members of the first paramedic class in the city of Stevens Point back when the paramedics were created. Ron, you want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, you have certainly continued to distinguish yourself. I can't believe it's been that many years since
I know. I know.
That first paramedic class, but are you the last? No, Joe Gemza was in the first.
Joe Gemza, myself. I think that's it of that class. Tracy Aldrich is still here, but he's no longer part of the paramedic group. But yeah, that was started out in 1998. We actually finished the class and graduated in 99, and we actually went into service January 1 of 2000, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Man, oh man, that seems like forever ago.
Yeah.
Well, it was forever ago. As you remember, Captain, that was my first term as mayor when we created paramedics for the county. And I was so proud of the cooperation between the city and the county and all of the paramedics who stepped forward. I mean, keep in mind for continuity, think back to 98, 99, then going online in 2000. I mean, this was really cutting edge. I think at the time we were the only county-wide paramedic service in the entire state. So you're to be commended.
Right.
You are
Absolutely.
to be commended for your continued professionalism, and I have known you for many decades and your family. And on behalf of the commission, Captain, we're very grateful that you continue to serve the people of Stevens Point. Thank you.
Absolutely humble. Thank you very much. There's no place else I'd rather be. I moved here for this. I raised my family here. This is a great place, great people, great community, great mayors.
Come on.
Thank you.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Captain.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right.
I'd still like to say something, President Westcott. This
Yes,
goes this goes to show you that the men and women of Stevens Point Fire Department and also the Stevens Point Police Department are truly never off duty. They choose this job to serve the community, and while Captain Hebler was even out of this community, he still chose to serve the public, and that's a calling in this profession, and I just want to commend him for that.
Yep. All human life is important, and Ron, you reflect that value, and we respect you for the work you're doing, and many more years of success to you. Stay safe out there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Good
Stay
job.
safe.
Yep. Thank you,
Thank you,
Ron.
Cap.
Good.
All right.
Cap,
Thank
I'll
you.
give you your medal tomorrow when I see you, Cap.
Sounds good, Chief. Thank you. I'm going
Thank
to try to figure out how to get out of here without making a mess of this.
All right, let's move to item 3, please, if we can, commissioners. Item 3 is twofold. We have our monthly update, again, on the COVID-19 update from both our police and fire services, and an update on the status for the need for the state of emergency to remain in effect. I think for some context here this Tuesday morning, let me share with commissioners and others who have taken time this morning to join us. The pandemic is growing, it's intensifying, it is not letting up. I have both the fortune and misfortune of having many medical professionals in the Westcott family and the extended Westcott family. I work on research projects that clearly indicate we need to be careful. We need to be safe. And those of you who have known me for a short time, and those of you who have known me for a long time, know I am the last thing in the world as an alarmist. For context, this commission's last regular meeting was October the 6th. On that date, commissioners, the state of Wisconsin had 136,379 positive COVID cases. Unfortunately, as of October the 6th, 1,399 of our fellow citizens had died from coronavirus. We now fast forward to November 3rd today, our regular meeting for the month. As of yesterday, there were 232,296 positive cases in this state, and 2,050 of our fellow citizens have died from COVID-19. That's an increase of 95,917 positive cases in less than a month, and 651 of our fellow citizens have died from this disease in just the last month alone. It is serious. Chief, I'm going to turn it over to you. Chief Finn, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. As you know, this Police and Fire Commission declared a state of emergency for the fire department last week, and I have to give you a weekly update. My first request would be to continue the state of emergency through a minimum of November the 10th. At the time of the state of emergency, we had people that were tested positive and people that were in quarantine. Through the efforts that were done here, and I'll let Chief Gemza go into what changed last week in our policies and procedures in the firehouse. We think we might have a control on the spread inside the firehouse, maybe, hopefully. I would like to say thank you to Human Resource Manager Lisa Yakush and Comptroller Treasurer Corey Laddick. Within 48 hours of us going in the state of emergency, through everyone's efforts in the fire department and the city, we were able to test 17 people that were in quarantine through Marshfield Clinic and get our results back within about 24 to 30 hours. And because of the measures that we took in the firehouse, they all came back negative.
Good.
So we are going to continue with these new policies and procedures. At a minimum through November the 10th, I would expect that we will be asking for it to be longer. But after November the 10th, I will get back to you. We have been able to fill our overtime as needed. The men and women of the Stevens Point Fire Department have stepped up and have accepted overtime when they're off duty to avoid us having to do any of the measures under the state of emergency that allows the fire chief to do. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Gemza and he can go over the policies and procedures and what we did in the firehouses to try to contain the spread of COVID-19. Chief? Is he here?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I just had to figure out how to unmute. I apologize for that. First off, thank you, Police Fire Commission, for allowing me to have a conversation with you guys. Just so that we're clear, the health department considers a firehouse based on the way our 24-hour shifts operate as a close contact household. And so what happens is whenever somebody is tested positive and had been at work, we were running into some problems regarding anytime you're in that area, they consider you to be a close contact and need to be quarantined. As you've been watching, you'll notice that they said they expected a 50%. They expect a 50% spread of COVID-19 based on household living. And so we had some legitimate concerns as we enacted Act 18 with the state. Alert 18 with the state, and following their guidelines and working with Health and Human Services along with our medical director to essentially change the way we operate inside the firehouse to ensure the safety and to stop the spread of COVID-19. So we'll just start out real quickly on the first thing that they do before they come in. They fill out a daily screening, which is nothing new. We'd been doing that prior. However, we added two times a day that they have to check their temperature to ensure, and then place that into our electronic scheduling so that we can go back and make sure that there's no signs and symptoms and that they also aren't exhibiting a temperature. We essentially shut down the day-to-day functioning aspect of visitors in a firehouse and communal gatherings in a firehouse, which is probably one of the hardest things we can do as being a community-oriented service. We enjoy having people come into the firehouse. We enjoy having kids stop in and do those types of things. Those have all stopped. Any deliveries or they stop in the foyer and then we sign it through that way, and then we move on. Now, mind you, during this time we had already limited that. Now we just shut it down. We said nobody outside of Stevens Point personnel should be allowed into the firehouse. and that's only after they've completed their testing. At each door for entrance of the firehouse, we have sanitation, and we also have PPE so that everybody will don that when they walk in. When you ask about PPE, what that looks like is we are, according to the health department, in order for us to not quarantine people, the PPE that we have to wear would be an N95, a gown, gloves, and face shields of sorts. Anytime we're within 6 feet or in a gathering. So what they do is they come in, they don their PPE, they get relief from their person because that's a discussion that they have to have. We've restricted meals, not meals like they can't eat, but mealtime. They're staggering their meal times so that they're not eating at the same time or gathering in those areas. Then what happened was the officers went through each station and they created, I guess what you'd say, a pod for each person. So in other words, we're not living communally anymore. They come in, they do their daily stuff that they have to do. Whether if you're a driver, you have to do your rig checks. If you're ambulance, you have to go through your ambulance. And we also have our just normal chore stuff. They'll do that, then they'll go to their pod, wipe that down, and then they'll be considered isolated at that point. With that, Trevor Howard, our new training officer, has really stepped up to the plate. And he is, with our new Target Solutions, our online training, we've been able to utilize the skills of the medics and all that, and for firefighting through that Target Solutions training. We've also implemented, as you know, Lexapol, the new policies and procedures. We rolled that out a little earlier than what we wanted because then now that gives them time to review and ask questions pertaining to the policies that we revamped. As you know, we took on a large, Lieutenant Zander took on a large role in the department to reassess all of our protocol, all our policies and procedures. And so that's one thing that they are doing. I'm just seeing what so also with Alert 18, we had to ensure that we tested the personnel that we thought through contact tracing. And like Chief Finn said, we were able to do that with a lot of help from Lisa Yakush and Corey Laddick. I don't think we could have done it if they had not assisted us. Within 36 hours, we had 17 people tested that they worked with us to ensure that we could get as many as we could. And they all came back negative. So what we're doing is headed in the right direction. We've had contacts with our medical director, Dr. Clark, who has been a blessing and has had conversations with us about what we're doing. He's very impressed with the steps that the fire department and the commission has invoked in order to allow us to still provide the service that we give to the community in a professional and timely fashion. Also, we've been with Health and Human Services, and we have confirmed 3 separate times that what we are doing would then alleviate the need to send people home on quarantine as long as we continue to operate in those cells or pods. So that's kind of what I have for right now. Are there any specific questions or anything that you would like to ask operationally or what we're doing?
No, I just think, Joe, it's a great response by you and the chief and the entire fire department to this situation. Again, as usual, you're ahead of the game, and hats off to you guys.
Thank you.
Are there other commissioner questions for either the fire chief or the assistant chief or EMS? Commissioner Ostrowski, yes, sir.
Joe, with this new procedure, is there a drain on your PPE equipment, or did you have sufficient to continue this plan?
That is a great question, Commissioner Ostrowski. As of right now, we continue to work with the state's contracted N95 sterilizers. So what happens is they wear their N95, and we only bought ones that could be sterilized through the Battelle contract with the state at no charge. Those masks can be re-sterilized up to 20 times, assuming they're still in good condition. Again, remember that we don't work in the most cleanest environments when we go out in public and stuff like that. but that has actually worked quite well. We've talked to the county about N95 and some different mask issues, and they have been a godsend to work with. I'm not going to lie to you; they've been very open to discussions about different ideas regarding the respirators or personal protection N95s for our personnel.
What about the face shields? Do you have a sufficient supply of them?
We have a sufficient supply of face shields and glasses. And as far as the gowns, one thing I want to give Lieutenant Ramon and Shane Westfall credit for was they had suggested we move to washable gowns, and so we're not disposing of a gown every time you wear it. So we have a bin that they go, and after you've utilized a gown, they can be washed and sanitized. So we're doing everything we can to recycle, reuse, and make sure that our guys and women of the fire department are safe.
Thank you for your efforts.
Joe, you want to talk a little bit about the flu? Or are we seeing, I know we're seeing upticks in flu and transports for flu. You want to talk, or maybe Chief Finn, one of you want to address that and how it plays in here, please?
Sorry. Chief, would you like me to take that?
Go ahead.
So last week we were notified that the northern region of our area, and I don't mean Portage County, we're talking about north central Wisconsin, started seeing the influenza outbreak, or not outbreak, but they started seeing cases of influenza. We've been in contact with St. Michael's Hospital and Aspirus, and Wednesday we have a meeting with the long-term care facilities to try to make sure we kind of have a game plan for making sure that we're not being duly impacted at that level. But again, when you talk about the flu, we worked with UWSP last week, making sure that their personnel, they were just shy of 1,000 people vaccinated for the flu at UWSP last week. So that's kind of a good thing. And our medics, Drew Egan and Michael, participated in that.
Chief, thank you for that update on the memorandum of understanding that we had with the university. I was going to ask about that. What is the status of the memorandum of understanding we have with Portage County Health and Chief Finn?
Chief Gumza got it yesterday, sent it over to me. I sent it to the city attorney. After discussions with the city attorney, he thought because this had to do with just operational, because it's outside the purview of the EMS contract, that I could be the signature on there. And I was going to bring that up in my report, but since we're here, if that's okay with you, I'll sign it and send the commission a copy of it.
That's okay with me. I would agree with the city attorney that it certainly is an operational issue that under the state statute, you would have full authority to execute. Ron, were you trying to get my attention, sir? Or?
No, I was just scratching my head.
Okay. Are there other questions on our COVID-19 update? I don't think we need a formal motion to extend the status. The state of emergency remains in effect until repealed by the commission, so there's really no formal legislative action required to keep something in effect that's in effect. Are there other questions for Joseph or Robert on this? Alderperson, Chief Finn, go ahead. You have the floor.
I know that Commissioner Moore had, and rightfully so, some concerns about an open-ended state of emergency. After November the 10th, I will update the Police and Fire Commission and where we're at. And then it'll also have my recommendations in there if we should extend it, or it could be stopped, or it could be canceled. It's not the intention. If we can fill our overtime and we get back to somewhat normalcy here, we like to ask to stop the state of emergency. And then if it happens again in a month, God forbid, we might have to enact it again. But that's the intent of the fire department.
Thank you, Chief.
Tom, I don't see Alderperson Kneebone on my screen here. She had asked for a moment to share a letter from a constituent before I move. I just wanted I don't see her. Alderperson Kneebone, are you with us on the phone? Okay. All right.
The only alder I see is Alder Shore.
Good. Well, we're grateful for any alder who takes time. Thank you. All right. Well, Okay, we'll move on. Item 4 is a quick update. Our search for the police chief continues. Our search was posted, our Midwestern search was posted on October the 7th. Search continues. Again, let me remind the community that the Police and Fire Commission is, and let me read right from one of the narratives that we've posted online. I know many of you have seen this, but I was asked the other day about what kind of individual we're looking for here. And I think it's important that, just let me read into the record, Leanne, again, you have this. The commission is seeking a community-focused, collaborative, and innovative professional to lead the Stevens Point Police Department. The police chief must possess an unwavering commitment to transparency and accountability, a contemporary leadership style that is deeply rooted in community policing, and a demonstrated aptitude for seeking creative partnerships and partnership-driven approaches that will improve our community health and community service. That's just part of the narrative that is out there. We're continuing to receive some applications, and that will remain open until a satisfactory number of qualified applicants have applied. There's nothing else I really have to add to that. Ron, you're leading the search and screen for the commission. Would you add anything to my thoughts, sir?
No, I think you hit it out of the ballpark with that.
All right, thank you. All right, update number 5. There's no formal action required, colleagues. Number 5 is an update on the annual performance evaluations for Interim Chief Tom Zenner and Fire Chief Robert Finn. Off the top of my head, I believe Lisa Yakush is asked for all evaluations to be in her office by December 4th. Everybody's nodding yes at me. Okay. Jerry, Ron, anybody want to update your colleagues on the status? Have you had the opportunity for the chiefs? I know both of them have been incredibly busy with so much on their plate. Self-evaluations, opportunity to do that initial meeting that's so important. Commissioner Moore, let's start with you first.
Yeah, Acting Chief Zenner and I had a very nice sit down the other day and went over some things and took the time to talk about what a unique situation this is for an evaluation, because as you know, Tom didn't apply for this position but has been kind of thrust there, and it gives us a different perspective and some good evaluations coming from him about the position and what needs to be done and some of the internal things that are being addressed, and I think he's doing a great job.
All right. Commissioner Kirschling, where are you? There you are. You moved on me.
I'm here. Yeah, we're about, I would say 70-75% of the way through it. Chief Finn and I have spoken. We are going to speak again. I need to reach out to a few folks to complete that evaluation, but it's going as planned, and we'll have it ready in time.
Good. I don't really have anything else to add other than the rest of November is going to get incredibly busy with special meetings that I know my colleagues are aware of. But employee evaluations, and I'm delighted to hear the liaisons are reaching deep within the organization to discuss basically what we used to call at the university supplemental reviews. There's all sorts of names for them, but to see basically an assessment as to how they're doing. And we'll have some aggressive goal setting for 2021. All right. Anything else, colleagues? All right. Thank you. Okay. The next one belongs to Chief Zenner. You were asked to return with some additional updates on policies within the police department. You have the floor, sir.
Sure, thank you. The one policy that we did bring back, the other ones that we did pass through last month was, but this month we brought back the discriminatory harassment policy. I did meet up with Commissioner Moore, and upon further review, we did not make any changes from the last month. I know the one thing that we had discussed concerned victims making a report that
find its way to the Police and Fire Commission. However, by the nature of a victim, we do not want or would request not to put restrictions on where a victim can make a report to. We left it open to where they can report literally to Lisa Yakush's office, the mayor's office, the Police and Fire Commission, and obviously bypass the chain of command if need be. So we left that as is. The only other, and really there wasn't any change in the policy on it other than to pull out from a paragraph and separate it so it became more visible, I guess would be the best way to put that, identify what the requirements would be. The changes that we did make though was to the supervisory responsibility of reporting complaints that come in on harassment. And the biggest change on this, and I don't believe there was any questions on this last month though, was that any complaint of involving discrimination, harassment, or retaliation that involved a member of the command staff, not just the chief of police, but down to the assistant chiefs, that required an immediate notification of the Police and Fire Commission by the next business day.
Thoughts, colleagues? Kind of it sounds, Tom, I think as we've worked on this over the last few months, to summarize what some of the commissioners have felt is perhaps the previous policy had this reporting, and I would agree with you. We don't want to limit anyone's ability to step forward and report this. Absolutely not. And that was the intent of this commission, that there would be a fail-safe mechanism that if somebody did go to city personnel, city attorney, mayor's office, that the commission would learn of that. I think one of the, and my colleagues jump in here if you agree with me or disagree. I think perhaps one of the Achilles heels that has been exposed here is that individuals could step forward outside of the commission and the commission wouldn't learn about it for a week or two or three, or if we'd even learn about it. And it's very difficult for the commission as the regulatory body to take the appropriate action under the law if we're not aware of it. So you're satisfied that that has now been taken care of, Chief?
Yes, because what we're talking about on that first part is the victim's responsibilities are coming forward and options that they can report it to. The supervisor responsibility still involves reporting to the Police and Fire Commission. The difference would be on that also, though, that it's, it'd be investigated if it's involved within the police department, obviously by the police chief. However, if it involves a member of the command staff, and again, we've included the assistant chiefs on that would go directly to the Police and Fire Commission within the next business day. So it would still come to the Police and Fire Commission. We just did not change the reporting requirement or options, I guess is a better term, I would say, dealing with the victim and how they can report that type of activity.
Okay, Tom, could I ask a question?
Yes.
And I think you answered it in the previous meeting, but I just would like you to reiterate it. How is this going to be disseminated to the rank and file so everyone's aware of the procedure and the policy and how to go about doing this?
Right. The system that we have in place is a Lexipol policy manual, the same as what the fire department has just, it's an excellent program. It's reviewed. It's a national program that comes out with annual, or actually I would say more than even annual review by the attorney hired through Lexipol. But whenever we get that policy, we modify a policy or we actually open it up, we don't even have to make a change. It gets into an approval state, back into the software, and that remains a reviewable policy that needs to be acknowledged by every officer within the PD. And I actually conduct searches of that within the system. We can tell who has reviewed and acknowledged a policy and who has not.
How about civilian employees?
They're on the system too.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure.
Every member, actually within the policy manual, individuals are identified as sworn if they're obviously sworn officers. If identified as an officer, it's a sworn officer. If it's identified within the manual as a member, that includes everybody within the police department. And obviously we have city policies too, administrative policies that are used if we do not have a policy with our own manual that they can review.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, did the city attorney review the policy?
Yes, he did.
Did he have any additional modifications in light of our previous discussion?
No, and he had reviewed all those policies last month that we brought forward. We have not made any changes to this one, so obviously he was in approval of it the previous time that we had brought it forward. I obviously, without making any changes, I didn't take it back.
All right, are there other questions for, yes, Commissioner Moore? Yes, sir, go ahead.
One of the situations where we decided not to change any of the wording on this because we wanted every possible avenue for a victim to be able to report something. And the thing that I can see that may be a hang up with this now is that we have this in place as a police and fire commission. And we have asked city personnel to be involved in this, but we have no recourse over any of them. And we need to find a way to communicate this to city staff, like the human resources people, so that they make sure, or that we make sure that we're communicating with them so that they know how to report this back to the police and fire commission. Because that bounce back coming back to us is the next step that needs to be addressed here.
Well, that's been I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was just going to say that, you know, that step is as equally important about reporting and how efficiently that goes and how quickly it comes back to us that we can actually do something about it. So it's just another chain in the link in the chain.
Well, are you suggesting that we should add some language? I mean, let's keep in mind, colleagues, that what we do is more than just a moment in time. I don't think there's any question that this policy has been strengthened in a number of areas. And with current administration, current city personnel people, current city attorney, I think alerting the commission quicker has now become automatic. But let's remember that this isn't going to always be the same administration, the same city attorney, the same personnel director. And we need to put in place that mechanism that 15, 20 years from now, if something like this should happen again, there's an automatic, they go to the policy, they have done their responsible role as a mayor, or a personnel director, or city attorney, whomever outside of the commission, and they know that it has to get to the commission to be handled in a timely manner. Chief Senator, go ahead.
I would say, and that might be operating outside of the policy of the police department, but then I bring you back to a supervisor responsibility. Obviously, if there is a complaint within the police department or any city department, the head of that department will obviously, or I can assume would be made aware of it and would be doing an investigation, which also brings up the concern is what happens if that complaint involves the chief or an assistant chief. That is the change that we made in the supervisory responsibility, that the requirement is immediately contact the police and fire protection. So essentially the chain of command remains a reporting requirement once a supervisor is made aware. And that is the language that has been changed in the policy. Now, if a complaint goes to the city, human resources, I would assume that they would be contacting the police chief of that complaint that came in, but that would obviously be outside of the police department policy. You're talking more of a policy of city administration.
Chief Finn, you look like you've been wanting to say something about fire standards, excuse me, fire policy. What would you add to this, Chief Finn?
Oh, I'm just listening intently. I have one of the few times I have nothing to say.
Wow, we'll have to write that one down.
Would
All
the
right,
right,
maybe I do have something to say.
Yeah.
My only concern is the way I understand 6213, if anything goes directly to the Police and Fire Commission, you guys, the Police and Fire Commission are also like the judge and jury of any disciplinary process.
Right.
So if you're receiving a complaint, what happens then? That was my only question. And I should have just shut up.
no, that's been a fair point all along, that the ability for the commission to investigate, well, you have to be aware of it.
Right.
And we can't order investigations for things that we're not aware of. Statement of the obvious.
And this is the situation that we came up with, is the fact that we have no authority over anyone in city office,
right,
in such a way to have them to demand that they report it to us.
But also no one that in the city has authority over us. You have the ultimate authority over us.
Exactly.
So the city couldn't not investigate anybody in the police and fire department without involving the police and fire commission, because they do under 6213. They by statute they don't have authority over us. You guys do.
Correct. And that's where that gap between asking somebody or giving them the ability to report to a city staff member,
Okay.
leaves a gap being reported back to the police and fire commission, because we have no tool to say that you must tell us about it. That's where our situation is. What do we do about that?
Well, you're right, Commissioner. We can't legally put in policy something that would direct the operation of the office of mayor or the personnel director of the city. You would know, and you would know that as a longtime alder. But I think language could go in there in an advisory capacity. To somehow, again, keep in mind, I want us looking ahead a decade, 12, 15 years, that we're all private citizens or working in Madison or Washington or wherever.
I'm tired.
10,
I thought I
15
was
years,
on mute. Sorry.
10, 15 years from now, the only person on this Zoom call will be Bob Finn. Just make note of it, please. I guess I just want to, we have, Ron, go ahead. You wanted to say something?
Nope.
No? All right.
No, but that's President Westcott. That's my point. What Chief Sanders said, that anybody should have the right to report anything to anybody. That's transparency. But
Yep.
If a report went to anybody at City Hall, an alder or something, they could not legally launch an investigation in anybody in the police and fire department. So therefore, if they want it investigated, they have to notify the police and fire commission, so the police and fire commission can order an investigation. Does that
Right.
make sense?
But what if they don't want it investigated?
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
I would just think that if someone complained, it should be investigated. I didn't think of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't think of that option. You're right.
Commissioner Moore, let me offer an idea here. We have put in place sufficient new safeguards. I'd like you and you and Chief Zenner and Chief Finn, I want you just to kind of chew on this a little bit more about, is there appropriate sentence or two? And let me think about it too, if I can suggest language that addresses kind of where you've been today, Jerry, and what we heard from Tom, that obviously we can't legislate policy toward the mayor, the city attorney, or the alder. Can't do it. But we want to make sure that we have strengthened the safeguards that we have put in place, and to make sure that if somebody goes out to City Hall, maybe there's a reason they have done that. They're not comfortable within the framework that exists right now, that we have the ability to have that shared with us. Tom, you're going to say something, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to go into, and I don't know if I read off this line though, with the supervisor responsibility, and really, I guess I can stress that's about as far as we can go as requirements within the police department. And the supervisor or manager shall notify the chief of police in writing of circumstances surrounding any reported allegations or observed acts of discrimination, harassment, or retaliation as soon as practical. That is any complaint that is filed by a victim, regardless if that goes to a supervisor within the chain of command or a manager through city government. Obviously, with it being a policy of the police department, we would not be able to, I don't want to say it's a hollow shell, but I certainly can't put in a policy and compel members outside of the police department to follow that policy. But it is documented within our policy what the requirement is. And again, that is separated then if it's beyond that. If we have a compromise within the command staff, that is an automatic trigger that the Police and Fire Commission is notified.
I want to make sure I understand what you're saying here. So really what you're saying is the reasonable conclusion allowed under the law. Somebody would read that outside of this chain of command and realize what they have to do with it. That's
Correct.
What you're saying.
Correct.
Yeah.
The complaint, essentially what the policy states, a victim, they can go anywhere. They can report it to anyone within city government, and it's a valid complaint. It's been received. Then notification needs to be made to the chief of police through either the chain of command or a manager, i.e. member of city government. That would go to the, shall be reported to the chief of police. And then if it involves the command staff, obviously that goes to the next step of the chain of command, being the Police and Fire Commission.
And there's no way the chief could suppress it and say, well, I'm not going to the commission with this. They have to report.
If by policy, if the chief, how it's written, if the chief fails to go to the Police and Fire Commission with that report, he'd be in violation of policy.
Correct. All right.
Regardless if the complaint is valid or not.
So that puts the obligation to report it on the chief then.
Exactly.
Well, that's what we're looking for. All right, you need a motion from us to adopt this or to, because really.
Yes.
Right. All right, commissioners, colleagues, Joseph, you've been awfully quiet on this.
I'm doing a good job of listening today.
Commissioner Kersley, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'm doing a good job of listening today. I don't have anything to add.
Commissioner Ostrowski, Carlson, anything to add?
I think it's been clarified. It's just that the fact that there's the difference of the person reporting it. I mean, they may not know the procedure, but I think we're covering the obligation of those that do receive the report to forward it to the proper places. And that's really only within our range. We cannot legislate beyond that.
Could I say something?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, I just I'm going back to what Commissioner Moore said, and maybe I'm missing the point on it, but I do see a loophole in this whole thing that if Officer A goes to the mayor or the human resources or whoever 10 years from now, I think there is a loophole there that well, we'll just take care of it here, you know. And it doesn't get reported. I'm scratching my head. I don't know if I missed something, but I think I understand what Jerry was saying. And I do think there's a little bit of a loophole there if the reporting person goes outside of the regular chain of command. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're seeing it right, Ron, but I don't know if there's an answer to that.
Yeah.
Short of putting restrictions on how a person can report it, there's no way around that. And I would I would be very uncomfortable putting that into a policy restricting
Right.
how a victim can report.
Chief Finn has something to say.
Yes, sir, Chief Finn.
I agree 100% with Chief Center. You don't want to restrict anybody's ability to report anything, but maybe it's time or someone from the Police and Fire Commission can work with like our Human Resource Director and update the city policy and make it a mandatory reportable thing to the Police and Fire Commission under city policy. And that would close the loophole, I believe.
Yeah, let me be clear. I'm
I
not
don't
hearing.
Police and Fire Commission, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I
Go ahead.
don't want the Police and Fire Commission to give up any of their authority under 6213
Right.
because a lot of
But-
people don't understand 6213. And, but it should be, you report it, but maybe it's even more teeth to a city policy that if it's reported from a complaint on a police and fire department, if it's on a chief or an assistant chief, it goes to the Police and Fire Commission. If it is on an officer or a lieutenant or a captain, it goes to the appropriate department and then they investigate it like we normally do. And then it goes up to the Police and Fire Commission. Maybe it's just strengthening the city policy.
Now, let me be clear here, and I agree with Chief Senator, Chief Finn, and my colleagues. This commission wants to encourage and create every possible avenue that exists under the law and do nothing to discourage anyone from stepping forward. Absolutely not. What we are interested in is when they show that courage to step forward. And as Commissioner Carlson said, they step forward to some perhaps at City Hall, that we absolutely have in place the proper mechanism that information gets back to us so we can handle it. I agree with you, Tom. I mean, we don't want to create anything that would limit or stymie one's ability to do the right thing. But we have certainly learned in recent events that things were occurring that we were not aware of. And we should have been made aware of them immediately. Not, well, I'll spare you Latin because nobody studies Latin anymore. But it's just, it was, you know, all right. I'm going to, we have sufficient practices and procedures in place right now today. Everybody agrees? I want the commissioners, I like the idea that the Chief Finn had. Maybe Commissioner Carlson and Commissioner Moore can work with Chief Senator, Chief Finn, see if we can create just some type of an inclusive sentence that when the report falls outside of the framework of the chain of command in fire or police, that it automatically is reported to the appropriate chief. And if it's the chief that's involved, that it's automatically within X number of hours reported to the Police and Fire Commission. That's kind of where you were going, right, Ron?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's, yes, sir, Commissioner Moore.
I kind of, what I would like to see is I would like to see us approve what Chief Center has brought forward so that is completed, because that's, I think, good work and it encompasses everything we need. I think what we're talking about now really needs to come from the city side and a collaborative work there, because it's really not something that if we even change a sentence, it's not going to mean anything because there's no power involved in it. So it's really, it would be, I'm going to make a motion to approve what Chief Zenner has brought forward as it is right now.
All right, I'll second it to move it to the floor for further discussion. To keep, because let's face it, 98% of this policy we agree with.
Yes.
There's only this 2% we feel could use a little strengthening or a little clarification or something. And again, I reckon, believe me, of all the people on this screen today, I get we can't create policy for the mayor and the city council. I get that. But we can always say, you know, if this happens and in the future you go to your checklist, there's an item on the checklist, you have to check that box, and that's notify the commission. That's kind of what Commissioner Carlson's saying, right?
Yes.
Right. All right. I'm comfortable but I want this work to continue, because it's okay to come back and say, and in addition, here's 2 sentences, 3 sentences to add. It's not policy, it's just guidance. Let's call it guidance for folks outside of the public safety area. How's that?
Excellent.
All right. I do have a motion to accept the policy as submitted to the Police and Fire Commission with that additional language. Leanne, if you would include, I'm going to ask Commissioners Carlson and Moore.
Don't you need a second?
I seconded it. Jerry made the motion. Thank you, Commissioner Ostrowski. Bob always keeps me on my toes. Thank you, sir. But I really think we need to have just a sentence or 2. And again, it's not policy, it's guidance. It's language that if in 10 or 12 years they go to this, they say, oh, we have to alert the commission within 24 hours or what. So we have ample opportunity to get started on this. All right, Chief Senator, yes, sir.
You confirmed on that, how you're looking at it? Would that be the Police and Fire Commission I have as automatic notification if a complaint is received concerning the command staff? If it is Officer Joe, I do not have that set in unless obviously the investigation is conducted by the Chief of Police. Are you referring that any complaint of this nature, or harassment that is made, be reported to the Police and Fire Commission? Because that is not in place at this point.
We have to have the ability, and that's why we want to think about this a little bit more. I mean, I'm going to move forward on adopting this policy, but we have to put in place sufficient safeguards that if an officer, to use your scenario, Tom, steps forward, and Ron, you're the former Assistant Chief of Police, so I'm going to defer to your guidance here, along with Chief Zenner. If someone from within the rank and file steps forward and goes to their supervisor, their lieutenant, their assistant chief, there has to be a way that their efforts are not stymied. And I'm not suggesting anybody on our staff would do that. Ron, you're a former assistant chief. Help us out here. Guide us.
I'm not so much worried about those complaints or concerns that come within the walls of the fire department or police department, because I think those can be handled appropriately. I'm concerned about those where they go outside of the walls of the police or fire department and contact somebody in city government and we're completely unaware of it. I'm perfectly fine with the command staff of the fire department and police department handling those day-to-day things or those incidents following the chain of command. My only concern is when they go outside of the walls of those 2 buildings, that we're aware of it somehow in some way.
Yeah, I think that captures the essence of it. Tom, clear?
Yep, that's clear.
All right, unless there is further discussion, let me move forward with the vote. Commissioner Ostrowski.
Just one comment. If we pass this as is for now, can we each be sent a copy of it, please?
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
So we can further study it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody clear on the motion? Everybody's nodding their head. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. A little more work to do, but we're getting there. Thank you, Chief Senator and Commissioner Moore. I know you put a lot of time and a lot of hours go into this and working with the city attorney. And as a colleague of mine on another project frequently says, it's close to soup. So, all right. Let's move to the Fire Chief's report and EMS report. Fire Chief Finn, you have the floor, sir.
Does the commission, did you guys receive the reports? I know they were sent via email late because of the date of today's meeting.
I have the monthly EMS report. I have a report from JB Moody, and I have Joseph's report. I have them, yes.
Okay. As you can see, even with dealing with COVID, stuff still goes on. So the majority of the last 2 or 3 weeks have been dealing with the COVID issues in the community and in the fire department, and making the firehouse a safe place to work and be able to provide the care that the community requires of us. So if there's anything, I have nothing to add other than the reports. If you have any questions, let me know.
No, I only have a comment, Chief. I was really surprised. I had expected a spike for whatever reason in the ambulance calls, but they're almost identical to last year, and that sort of surprised me. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, our run volume has basically stayed the same.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, there's less people in the city.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, there's not a lot of students here.
Good point.
Through the summer, there wasn't a lot of tourists for baseball games and everything else, so.
Excellent.
So the next step there logically would be is that it might actually be up. Well, we can have that discussion later. Are there any questions for Chief Finn? Chief Gems, are you still with us, sir? Okay, Joseph.
I am still with you. Sorry. I apologize. It takes me
any questions about the fire chief's report or EMS report?
No. I moved.
All right, I'll move. I'm sorry, who moved?
I did.
Okay, second by Commissioner Kirschland.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor of accepting the fire chief's report, including the EMS report for the month, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. Item number 8 is the chief of police report. Colleagues, you have interim chief Zenner's report. Thomas, you have the floor, sir.
Some of the big items that we ended up having this past month, we did have a drug take back that we did go forward with. There was some questions whether we were going to do that with COVID, but we did move forward with that on October 24th at the Lincoln Center along with that, and our drug bin drop-off points at our department, the sheriff's office in Plover. We did collect 32 boxes of 432 pounds of surrendered drugs that were dropped off at District 4 and State Patrol. So that's a significant amount that did not go down our sewage system in the city. Also, we had a fairly significant event at Point Motel where it was a joint effort between us and the fire department. We got a complaint that came in of a meth lab that exploded. Was the initial complaint that came in. We did uncover a small lab in a minor explosion, working with the fire department and also community development. We were able to secure a location. At one point, we were going to be evacuating the entire motel. We were able to scale that back to just the rooms on each side. That at first we were able to relocate within the Point Motel until we found out that there was bed bugs at the location. Then we had to relocate to Knights Inn. Long story short, we've had some continued issues at Point Motel. We're currently in the process of a chronic nuisance abatement at that location. And I believe through the district attorney's office, criminally looking to address the issues that we seem to repeatedly have at that location. Other issues of note, mental health calls. We do continue to see an uptick, although welfare checks were down. We are trending upward on voluntary commitments and emergency commitments. We also did have one very unfortunate situation of a completed suicide. Obviously very emotional scene, not only for family members, but officers that responded. And we did activate our peer group to hold a diffusing for the officers that responded to that call. That was linked, we did have prior contact with the individual. So that hats off to Lieutenant Williams and Lieutenant Bean that set that up. Other than that, we did have a retirement within the police department. Officer Pat Stanislavski retired after 28 years of service. We're currently in the process of starting a hiring process for that. That's headed up by Assistant Chief Bob Cousseau. We did complete our annual handgun certifications this past month, and we currently have Sergeant Blue down in Indiana attending his certification for K-9 recertification instructor that passed through the Police and Fire Commission. I believe that was last month. So other than that, that was a quick rundown. Is there any questions?
Tom, you want to talk a little bit about the role of the mental health officer or officers training? Although the mental health related incidents were down slightly from the previous month, I think some of that might be indicative of the work they're doing.
Officer Mike Radzik is in that position, and he's just doing an outstanding job. There was an article that was in the Point Metro this past week, and I spoke to the editor to, if there'd be an ability to lift the paywall on that, which she did. And the reason I did that, I think absolutely excellent story of the work Officer Radzik is doing in the community and the challenges that we face with our homeless population. We obviously, we're seeing an uptick, and we can draw correlations, hypotheticals of what we're dealing with COVID and the environment that our nation currently is in. If that has an impact on it, it certainly seems to be the case. Sorry about that. Hanging up my phone's back here. But I have seen an uptick, and working with our, not just Officer Radzik, but the officers out on the road that are all trained in critical incident management, but our crisis intervention training, but also the different partnerships that we have, whether it's the hospitals or Health and Human Services. We all need to pick it up. We're running into situations that are challenging our resources and challenging how we have handled these cases in the past. Standard procedures are not working. We do need to modify and move forward.
Well, there's no doubt the news story that you referenced from the Point Plover Metro Wire really revealed the compelling and compassionate side, not always associated with law enforcement. And I know reporters hate it when you say thank you as a public official, but that was a very well done story, and it certainly is an excellent example of a complete body of work being done by the police department. So
I would reach out on that. We haven't, it's not just Officer Radzik, the Salvation Army, our warming shelter within the community. Tiffany Krieger is very active with that, and it takes a group effort to deal with the individuals that we run into out on the street. But unfortunately, we do have some that fall between the cracks, and we can't forget those individuals. It's getting cold outside, and I think as a community, it's a great article to read to really see the backstory. It's just not individuals that we've talked about it many times. We have a lot of resources in our community, and the argument, you can lead a horse to water, but there is a backstory that goes into this, and I think that article does reach that. But it's just not Officer Radzik that's out there making these connections. It's officers on the street, on patrol, but it's also the Salvation Army and individuals that work with the Army.
Commissioner Ostrowski, you were next.
Chief Zinner, on the drug take-back program, what do we do to let the community know where they can take these drugs? I've recently run into a number of senior citizens that said they got quite a collection and they weren't aware of where to exactly take it. I'm not sure, do we announce it in any way? Does it publicly get put out there somehow, some way? I mean, I'm aware of it because of my involvement with the commission, but I'm not sure everybody in the community knows where it's safe to walk in and drop it off and get rid of it.
Well, we've done quite a few large campaign on that. We do have it active in the social media, Lincoln Center. We have advertised in the past. We did have a brief moment. Obviously, we closed down our lobby because of COVID issues, and the other agencies have done that also. So I don't know if it's individuals within our community are unaware that we've reopened that, but we obviously we have that on our website, that is a service that we provide. And again, I'm not sure if that's still being advertised at the Lincoln Center or not, but we can certainly revisit that.
Well, that's my concern. I mean, when you get to the elderly, everybody starts talking about websites and everything like this. There's a vast amount of people in this community that don't have a computer, don't know how to use one, and don't care to use one. So I'm just relying on regular, announcements. I'm hoping it's at the senior center because that's one thing that the elderly seem to rally around. But I've had this question put to me a few times. It may be because of the recent shutdown, because it has happened just in the last 2-3 months that I've had a number of people ask me.
Right. Unfortunately, too, it's not something that is consistently, I mean, it's one of those things when you need it, that's when you're kind of looking. You're not looking for it before you actually are in the need of that service. So even though we may be advertising that, it might not be something people are really following.
What I'm afraid of is the logical people that go into the bathroom and sending it down the drain, and I don't want to see that happen.
Right.
Boy, I don't know, Bob. My 90-year-old mother, and yes, I'm blessed to still have my mother with us, is I can't get her off her computer. I don't know. I think that I know you're active, and my mother is. If I could just stop getting her to believe she's won some lottery in Jamaica somewhere, but other than that, who is going to add something? Rob, you're going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on the Point Plover Metro story about the homeless. I just want to tell you, firsthand experience, there's no more lonely or helpless feeling for a police officer or a firefighter at 2 o'clock in the morning when it's 5 degrees out, and a helpless feeling when they've exhausted all their ability to stay at the Salvation Army or the warming center, and you have someone who's out there sleeping when it's 5 degrees out. Where do you go? So Tom just briefly mentioned on it. I think we need the entire community. I think we need an uptick in mental health awareness, and we need some help at the county level with Health and Human Services, because I don't see this getting better. And the frontline workers who are out there, it's a hopeless feeling at that time of the morning, or even at 10 o'clock at night when you have someone with no place to go, who's burned bridges, and you're there with them. What do you do? So it was a great article. I think the more exposure we can get on this and get more people involved, the better off those people will be, as well as the entire community. So good job by everybody. Keep it going.
Tom, I know the Attorney General's office has been rather busy the last few weeks putting out memos and advisories on, what was the one I got yesterday, on election security. Any thoughts for our colleagues on that? I won't steal any of the Attorney General's thunder here, but I know you have received them too, so.
Obviously, there's a lot of communication out there. We have an election going on today. If people don't know about that, get out and vote. There's my plug. But we definitely, we've shared that information with all our officers. We're operating at maximum staffing. We will, we read newspapers too. Obviously, we do have information that has come in from various law enforcement entities, and we're continuing to monitor situations, and hopefully we have a successful and non-eventful for law enforcement standards election.
Here. Are there other questions for our Chief of Police on his monthly Chief's report? Cherry, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Just make a motion to accept the report and place it on file.
Hirschling, second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, colleagues. Has Attorney Dietrich joined us yet, Tom?
Yes, he has.
Okay, thank you. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we go to special counsel. We have the minutes from our October 6th meeting. Again, excellently prepared by Leanne. I know you put a lot of time and effort into this, and Leanne, I publicly thank you for that. You've done, again, a very nice job of capturing the complexities of this commission in a very easy to read format. I have no editorial recommendations or modifications. Thank you, Leanne. Colleagues?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Motion from Commissioner Ostrowski, seconded by Commissioner Carlson. Thank you. All in favor of adopting the minutes as submitted, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We'll say no. And again, thank you, Leon. Really well done. You put a lot of time and effort into that, and I want you to know the commission's aware of it. Item number 10, Bob Ostrowski's favorite item, the confirmation of bills. Robert, I'll give you the floor because you are a resident CPA here. Go ahead.
Actually, in looking over the bills, I was rather impressed, and that is when I added the budget. I mean, we are in very good shape budget-wise. My continued concern, however, is that we keep defining what goes into what, and if we need to add categories, because we continually to go over some budgets dramatically, and other ones we don't even barely use. So I'd just like to see it directed better. But I want to congratulate both chiefs. I think budget-wise, they couldn't be doing much better, and I'm surprised Mr. Finn hasn't figured that out yet. He's usually pretty good at spending the funds. But I actually am at the point I would recommend we approve all the spending bills as is.
Is that a motion, sir?
Yes, it is.
All right, I will second that. I've reviewed the bills too. Chief Finn, were you going to say something?
You're not going to see the end of the year spending like I usually do that Commissioner Ostrowski's talking about. We have been, because of the overtime, and we have instituted other things this year within our operating budget that weren't planned for, that maybe next year, Commissioner Ostrowski, but no big end of the year spending this year. So,
well, in all honesty, too, a big expense this year on both departments has been recruitment, training, and equipment, and that's because of turnover. You guys got hit this year more than any years I have seen in my attendance. So I appreciate your guys' efforts. I mean, I really think you do a dramatic job. If it was up to me, these budgets would be bigger for you, because I know you guys could use the money.
I'm all for that.
Well, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that the men and women, both their police and fire services, are doing a great job. So thank you. All right, we have a motion to approve the bills as
Mr.
submitted.
President.
All in favor? Yes.
To clarify, Chief Finn doesn't spend just to spend. The way that kind of came off is that he spends because it's in the budget. Chief Finn spends because things are needed. And this year, funds are getting reallocated because of the unprecedented circumstances.
Yep.
Well stated. Well stated. Well stated.
Thank you for clearing that up. Yes, we at the end of the year, we try to watch the budget throughout the year, and what we're buying is budgeted items. And sometimes, thank you for clearing that up, Commissioner Kirschland. Yeah,
Thank you, Joseph.
I just don't go on a spending spree for the heck of it.
I think what we'll do is we'll just mute Bob's mic for the rest of the meeting. How's that?
And the next meeting too.
All right. All right, all in favor of adopting the bills as submitted to the commission, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Our last public session item today is a review of State Statute 6213, the role of a police and fire commission. Attorney Dietrich, I'm told, has joined us. And Counselor, are you there?
I'm here and available.
Okay. In a moment, I'm going to ask the special counsel to review, just in general terms, a memorandum, legal opinion that commissioners received last night from the Office of Special Counsel. Perhaps the best way to shoehorn into this occurred to me when I was reviewing the Wisconsin League of Municipalities Handbook for Police and Fire Commissioners. Now, this is a handbook that is available at the police administration. Leanne has assured me that copies are available. Some people have checked it out. It used to be available at the city clerk's office for the many, many years I was downtown. I have left Carrie alone because she's got other work right now with the election. But I have checked, and they can't seem to find the handbooks that were available at City Hall, and that's understandable. They've got a lot of other things going on down there. But very soon, additional handbooks will be provided to the clerk's office, and the handbook says it best. The state legislature's primary purpose in creating police and fire commissions was to remove the administration of fire and police departments from city politics and place it in the hands of impartial and non-political citizen boards. The state legislature enacted that law about 100 years ago. There has been much in the news recently about the role of a police and fire commission in a community. The jurisdiction it does have under state law and what it does not enjoy under state law. And I felt very appropriate to ask an expert in this area. As the commission is aware, Attorney Dean Dietrich is considered an expert in municipal law, labor law, and a number of other areas. I will not embarrass the attorney by going through his resume, but anyone who is aware or watching this meeting or will watch it in the future would be hard pressed to find an attorney with greater credentials. He's been doing this for a few years. He has worked on both sides of the labor issue for employees and employers. He has frequently, again, presented in front of the Supreme Court. His legal credentials are impressive. Colleagues, I know you're aware of that. He has served as special counsel to this commission for a number of years. We have always found his work to be spot on perfect. Last night, Dean sent to the Police and Fire Commission a memorandum regarding the authority of a police and fire commission and answered many of the questions. I will share that memorandum later today with the mayor and the alders. Dean, I'm going to stop talking and let you quickly maybe hit the high points. And I did not mean to embarrass you, but a lot of people outside of the realm of this commission may not be aware of your impeccable credentials. So if you want to just take it from there, I'll stop talking, sir.
Well, I thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the comments. And most of all, I appreciate the fact that you danced around the notion of a long period of time. And yes, it's been 45 years that I've been doing this type of work, and particularly local government work for that period of time. I did not want to, in this memo, reiterate everything that was provided to you back in 2016 when you had a presentation from the city insurance company and their designated counsel. I know that I attached that to the materials, and it's a long read, but it was a nicely prepared document that summarized the duties and responsibilities of a police and fire commission. I tried to address in the memorandum to you a summary of that information in a bullet point fashion, so you had kind of a framework for our discussion. And then I addressed several questions that had surfaced regarding the events of the past 2 weeks. I don't think it's necessary for me to read through those. So I would like to, I'd like to perhaps address two topics that I think are most germane to the different types of issues that have been addressed and discussed in the media. The first one is the often based tension between a police and fire commission and an elected body, whether it be a common council or a village board. And I have seen that tension arise in many different forums, many different settings, and in many different communities. And in one sense, it's a good thing because it shows the dedication, the enthusiasm, the interest of the governing body of elected officials and the Police and Fire Commission. Both parties are enthusiastic and very interested in fulfilling their requirements and responsibilities at the highest level. What's unfortunate about that tension is a determination of who has the final authority, or as often stated in a colloquial way, where does the buck stop? And in traditional police and fire commission arrangements, the Police and Fire Commission has limited authority to deal with hiring and firing, and the municipal governing body has the authority to determine the policies regarding the operations of the police department, the financial arrangements of the police department, and other kind of typical day-to-day operations. Which leads me to my second topic, and that is the delegation of optional powers to a police and fire commission. That action was taken in the city of Stevens Point a number of years ago. It is referenced in the city ordinances. In the materials from the city insurance company, there's a listing of approximately 15 municipalities where the optional powers have been delegated by a public vote, have been delegated to the Police and Fire Commission. As I described in my materials, that does change the landscape. In instances where optional powers are delegated to the Police and Fire Commission, the Police and Fire Commission becomes the Common Council or the Village Board and exercises that overall responsibility for the operations of the police department and the fire department. The determination of a public safety building, a police building, a fire building rests with the governing body, the village board, the common council, and ultimately the finances. What is the budget for the police department and the fire department? The availability of funds is determined by the governing body of the municipality. Everything else is vested in the Police and Fire Commission. And this does create, again, that body of tension between the Police and Fire Commission, who are working very diligently to exercise their duties and responsibilities, and the governing body of the municipality that also is viewing these responsibilities from their view, from their perspective, and what they feel they should be involved in or providing guidance on. The optional power provision comes from our Wisconsin state statutes. There's specific procedures for the delegation of that authority. It's found in the backup materials that were provided to you. So it is a tension. There's always that tension. That tension takes a little bit different focus in the case of an optional powers. But what I've outlined in this document for you is really the conclusionary aspects of the duties and responsibilities of the Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission. I did not think you wanted a law review article. And that's why I attached the materials from the insurance carrier as background materials. The document that I have submitted to you is based upon 45 years of providing advice to local government units. I always have to go back and read the statutes, and I do that, and I did that in this case, and referred to the statutes. But it's based upon experiences I've had in representing local government units and representing commissions in all of the various aspects of their duties and responsibilities. Mr. President, beyond that, the document kind of speaks for itself, so I would be available to answer any questions about this, but it kind of lays everything out with the background for your consideration.
All right, I know my colleagues have questions. On a personal note, I've always enjoyed reading your law articles, so.
Most people don't.
Yeah, what's that?
Most people don't.
Yeah. I'd like you to touch on a couple of the points that have been made in the community a few times. Under the law, the authority of Common Council to address personnel matters in police and fire departments. Stevens Point is an optional powers commission. I'd like you to address the authority of a council to address personnel matters within police or fire.
Whether you're dealing with an optional powers police and fire commission or a regular authority police and fire commission, personnel matters that rise to a level of any type of discipline are subject to the authority of the chief or the police and fire commission. Now, I'm going to explain why I make that differentiation. The day-to-day operations of a police department or a fire department are subject to the authority of the chief and the issuance of written disciplinary action, typically a written reprimand, is under the authority of the chief and is not subject to that appeal process to go to the Police and Fire Commission. But the issuance of any type of disciplinary action that results in an impact, a financial impact upon a police officer or firefighter is subject to issuance by the chief, but then is subject to appeal to the Police and Fire Commission. And any decision regarding termination of a police officer, a firefighter, or a chief is subject to the final authority and the only authority of the Police and Fire Commission. You know, does that mean that people can't talk about things? What it means is that the authority to make a decision regarding disciplinary action and personnel matters within a department are subject to the statutory procedures of 6213. Again, in the case of optional powers, it's even more clearly stated that the Police and Fire Commission has those optional powers to organize and supervise the police and fire departments, to describe rules and regulations for controlling and managing the departments. That's not my language. That's state statute language. So I think that addresses that concern.
So, Counselor, in summary, is it accurate under Wisconsin law the Police and Fire Commission has sole and exclusive authority to address personnel matters in the police and fire departments?
Well, I have to go back to my answer. I mean, the chief initially addresses them.
Right.
And there are some disciplinary matters that may be addressed by a chief that wouldn't advance to the commission. But the commission, whether an optional powers or not an optional powers, is the only entity that has the authority to address personnel matters and disciplinary matters within each of those departments.
If you in your memorandum, you touch on the sharing of personnel information in an investigation. Would you just spend a moment on that? I think your memorandum provides great clarity in that area where there has been some confusion.
Yeah, and I would break it into two kind of areas of concern and / function. The first area is just general personnel information. Personnel information regarding performance evaluations, personnel information regarding eligibility for benefits or sick leave or stuff like that, is subject to potentially release or disclosure to the public, depending upon what the information is or is being requested. For example, personnel information regarding wage rates is generally open to the public. Personnel information regarding the medical condition of an employee who is seeking time off or seeking some sort of a benefit coverage is not generally available to the public. The specific issue that you've questioned is investigations regarding conduct of an employee. And when we're talking about an investigation, what we're talking about is the gathering information, the review of that information, the decision regarding what, if any, disciplinary action to take, and then the consideration if there is going to be a hearing regarding that disciplinary action, how that information is handled. And during the course of an investigation, because no decision has been made, the information is to be kept confidential, because that's what an investigation is. A review of the facts, typically by the manager, by management, by the chief, and then the consideration of that factual information by the commission in its role of determining whether or not to proceed with some type of further disciplinary action. If a hearing is scheduled before the Police and Fire Commission, either to proceed with termination of an employee in either of the departments, or to appeal some type of disciplinary action that's been issued, that ultimate hearing is open to the public by operation of state law. So at that stage, the information becomes part of the hearing process and is considered by the commission as part of the hearing and part potentially of deliberations. The deliberations by the commission would be held in executive or closed session. But to release information prior to a decision being made would taint the process and potentially result in a legal challenge to the disciplinary action that's been taken.
All right, I have other questions, but I'm anticipating that some of the commissioners may have questions for you too, Counselor. Let me switch back here. Questions from members of the commission for the special counsel. Boy, I tell you, Dean, you got a captivate. I don't know that I've ever seen this group so quiet. Ron, you look like you wanted to say something.
Well, I thought the 4 emails pretty much laid it out, and it was actually an easy read. And Dean just reemphasized that with his talk today. But no, I thought it was pretty clear, everything I read and heard.
Commissioner Moore.
Well, I can tell this came from an attorney, because they're the only ones brave enough to call a 4-page document and a 52-page supplement a memo.
That's probably true.
Right. Dean, let me ask you this. Some questions have been raised about the authority for hiring a police chief or a fire chief in the city. Now, the commission has made it very clear repeatedly since June that we're going to use an inclusive process. We're going to go back to something we have done for years. We will create stakeholder groups of city officials, public safety officials, community business people. We will ask many folks in our community to be a part of the various stakeholder groups to interview the finalists. But the actual authority for hiring the fire chief or police chief rests where, sir?
Clearly, again, whether you're a police and fire commission with optional powers or not with optional powers, the final decision regarding the selection of the chief rests with the police and fire commission. The use of the inclusive process that you have described, which is a process that I typically see in what I would call higher level positions in education, is certainly an appropriate process when you're dealing with a high level position in city government that has an impact upon the entire community. But the ultimate final decision rests with the 5 commissioners that are serving in that capacity.
Are there questions for council? I know we have quite a bit of work to do in executive session. Again, if none of my colleagues have questions, I will ask Leanne to share the entire memorandum, legal opinion with all of the alders, with the city attorney, and with the mayor a little bit later today after we conclude our business. Counselor, I know you put a lot of work into this, and your reputation is impeccable, and it's a good body of work. Thank you. There is really no formal action required there. Just one last check, colleagues. Any questions? Okay. With that, I'm going to move to item 12, which is the motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to section 1985(1) A and F and G of the state statutes for the purpose of preliminary consideration of disciplinary charges against specific persons, which if discussed in public would likely have an adverse effect upon the reputation of the individuals named in those charges, for the purpose of deliberating regarding preliminary matters relating to the disciplinary proceedings and conferring with legal counsel, who is rendering advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the commission with respects to litigation it may become involved in, including discussion regarding preliminary proceedings relating to a hearing and the statement of charges against a firefighter employee. That is my motion. Is there a second, please?
I will second it.
Second by Commissioner Kirschling. You have the motion. Leanne, would you be kind enough to call the roll so we have a recorded vote on this?
Carlson? Carlson? Unmute.
Ron, you have to turn your mic on.
Yep, thank you. Yes.
Christling?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Ostrowski?
Yes.
And Westcott?
Yes. Okay, we are going to go into executive session. We will say goodbye to everyone except for Commissioner Carlson. You will need, as you have recused yourself, we will say goodbye to you and thank you for your participation today.
All right. Thank you.
Bob Finn, we say goodbye to you. We say goodbye to Leanne, Chief Center. Tom, let me know when the board's cleared except for commissioners.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.